Hidden deep in the mountains of North Korea's South Pyongan province lies one of the most secretive and brutal places on Earth, Kaechon Internment Camp, more widely known as Camp 14. For decades, the North Korean government denied these camps even existed. Yet satellite images, survivor testimonies, and intelligence reports have revealed something chilling. Camp 14 is not just a prison. It's a place where entire families are condemned to live and die as slaves, sometimes for crimes they never committed. The story of Camp 14 begins with a policy known as 3 generations of punishment. Under the rule of the Kim Il-sung, and later enforced by leaders like Kim Jong-il and Kim Jong-un, the regime adopted a system where if one person was accused of disloyalty, their children and even grandchildren could be imprisoned alongside them. The logic was simple and terrifying. If a family line was considered politically dangerous, it had to be erased. Camp 14 was designed for exactly that purpose. Established sometime in the late 1950s, Camp 14 sprawls across a mountainous area estimated to be around 150 square kilometers. Guard towers surround its perimeter. Electric fences snake through the forests. Armed patrols monitor every movement. But what makes Camp 14 especially horrifying is that most prisoners are not expected to ever leave. Unlike some North Korean camps where inmates might eventually be released, Camp 14 is a total control zone. Once someone enters, their sentence is effectively life. Inside, survival depends entirely on forced labor. Prisoners work in coal mines, farms, factories, and logging operations from early morning until late at night. Even children are sent to work as soon as they're physically able. According to survivors, a typical workday can stretch 12 to 15 hours. Food rations are barely enough to keep people alive. Many prisoners survive on a thin corn porridge, cabbage soup, and occasionally a few grains of rice. Hunger becomes so constant that inmates sometimes hunt rats, snakes, or insects just to survive. And if they're caught, punishment can be immediate and brutal. Public executions are used as a tool of control. Prisoners are often forced to gather and watch as someone accused of stealing food, attempting escape, or disobeying orders is shot in front of them. The message is clear. This is what happens when you break the rules. One of the most haunting glimpses inside Camp 14 comes from a man named Shin Dong-hyuk. Shin was born inside the camp in 1982. He had never heard of countries like China or South Korea. He didn't know what freedom meant. In fact, he didn't even understand what love was. Children in Camp 14 were raised to inform on their own families. Loyalty to the guards mattered more than loyalty to parents. When Shin was a teenager, he overheard his mother and brother discussing a plan to escape. Following the rules he had been taught since childhood, he reported them to the guards. Soon after, he was taken to an underground prison where he was tortured. Guards hung him from the ceiling and lit a fire beneath his back, leaving permanent scars. They demanded to know what he knew about the escape plot. Then they forced him to watch something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. His mother was executed by hanging. His brother was shot. At the time, Shin believed they deserved it. That's how deeply the camp's indoctrination shaped him. Years later, working in a factory inside the camp, Shin met another prisoner who had been transferred from a different labor camp. This man told him stories Shin had never heard before. Stories about the outside world, about countries where people could travel freely, about food that didn't have to be stolen or rationed, about a place called South Korea where electricity stayed on all night. For the first time in his life, Shin realized something shocking. Camp 14 was not the entire world. It was a prison. In 2005, at age 23, Shin attempted the unthinkable, escape. Together with the older prisoner, he approached the electrified fence that surrounded the camp. But as they ran toward it, something went terribly wrong. His companion hit the electric wire first and was instantly electrocuted. Shin later said the man's body fell across the fence, temporarily grounding the current. Using the body as a shield, Shin climbed over the fence and ran into the mountains. Against all odds, he had escaped the place where he was born. Eventually, after a long and dangerous journey across China and Southeast Asia, Shin reached South Korea. His testimony would later become one of the most detailed accounts of life inside North Korea's prison camp system. His story was documented in the book Escape from Camp 14, which shocked readers around the world. But Shin's story is only one piece of a much larger puzzle. Human rights organizations, including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, estimate that between 80,000 and 120,000 people may still be held in North Korea's network of political prison camps. Satellite images have shown guard towers, mining sites, and housing compounds consistent with forced labor facilities. And yet the North Korean government continues to deny that these camps exist at all. International pressure has grown over the years. A major investigation by the United Nations Human Rights Council concluded in 2014 that crimes committed in North Korea, including imprisonment, torture, starvation, and execution, may constitute crimes against humanity. But the camps remain, and inside places like Camp 14, life continues much the same way it has for decades. Children are still born behind barbed wire. Families are still punished for the alleged crimes of relatives, and prisoners still wake up each morning to that same whistle in the cold mountain air. The world outside debates politics, sanctions, and diplomacy. But inside the fences of Camp 14, those conversations feel impossibly distant. For the people trapped there, survival is measured one day at a time, one bowl of corn porridge, one shift in the mines, one more night in a wooden barrack. And for many, the hope of escape is almost unimaginable, because unlike most prisons on Earth, Camp 14 was never built to rehabilitate. It was built to erase families, to erase identities, and in many cases, to erase people from history itself.